Well, good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, and as you know it, same as every Monday, we're going to work out together. So if you're struggling with a little bit of lack of motivation, or you just kind of need a little extra push to get into doing just a simple 20 to 30 minute workout, this is it. This is what we're doing. I'm going to try something today where I got you guys right there, and I also have you right here. And maybe this way, I don't know, you get two perspectives. I don't know if it's going to add too much extra work in terms of the editing and stuff. Yeah, all right. We shall see. For now, let's just get into it. We'll see if the experiment is worth it. All right, so let's get into it. As you guys know, I'm going to be doing my 100 kettlebell swings in sets of 10, but whatever it is that you're doing, that works as well. So let's just try to get into it, and we'll talk a little bit in between sets. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, I seem to be having a little bit of technical problems here with the camera. I don't know, it stopped itself, and it throws me off a little bit because then I start paying extra attention to make sure that I don't go a long period of time without it actually recording. I also have this little guy going over here that is tiny and cute, and I figure it can give us a different perspective, but at this point, it's now being more distracting than anything. And so I don't know exactly how we're going to keep doing this. So let me get another set in, and then I'll come back and talk to you guys. All right, let's do this. So when you go set number 2, let's start at 11. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right, well, what I was trying to say earlier, before we had all this trouble, is I wanted this week to have started, or what we're about to do this week to have started last week. I wanted to start measuring the food. I wanted to start being a little more mindful about nutrition and macros, and feeling like I am making a more serious effort in terms of the proper nutrition that we're trying to accomplish. But because it's not like we weren't really moving forward. I mean, we were still trying to be somewhat mindful, although, this past week wasn't ideal, and we'll probably get into that at some point this week. But I wanted to be a little more mindful of the process, and feeling sick left me not really wanting to do anything really. And it's, it requires a certain level of effort, especially because we're trying to change this. We're trying to go about it for the first time. It's going to be our first, what do I call it? Like our first week with the new system. And I keep saying system like I already have it figured out, but I don't really. But just the first week where at least we're more purposefully and intentionally trying to do this. I'm trying to measure food, and that makes us make better choices, which is something that I didn't do last week because I was feeling really sick. But I wanted to have started with all this last week as opposed to just this week. And so I feel like we're a little bit behind, but again, this is the beauty of having a longer goal in the future, that, one odd week doesn't completely derail us because we're still doing fine. We're still, on track to meet our goal. And so for the most part, that is not going to be an issue. We're going to focus this week a little bit more, continue to try to implement the system, and then we'll sort of take it from there, see all our measurements, see all the things, and yeah, that'll basically be it. Let me get another set in, and then we'll talk about some of the things, because I guess technically there is something coming out today if you guys are interested. But let me just get one more set in and we'll talk about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. Whew. Okay, so because everything is still kind of happening right now, we're developing and implementing as we're going. I don't have all the aspects of it clear, but something that I've been thinking a lot about is having a more public, a more visible way of displaying what the goals are and how we're moving forward, and to keep track of the progress that we're doing in a more visual and a more tangible way, I guess. And so I decided on a few metrics that we're going to start with to feel, I guess not to feel, but to measure progress, but yeah, I guess to feel like we're making meaningful, purposeful progress. Because at the end of the day, you know, even small changes in behavior and habits are creating some change that is going to add up over time. But for someone like me, who is, again, a very numbers type person, and I'm very motivated by seeing things represented visually, I'm going to try to help myself with some of that. And so I came up with a number of metrics that we're going to try to implement and visualize through graphics in a way that I can see it, but then all of you guys can see it, and it can sort of be like a companion to this entire journey that we're embarking on, that we have been on for the last 100 days, and now we are getting onto the next phase that'll take us all the way till July of next year. Because I guess if you don't know what I'm talking about, is July of 2025 will be my 40th birthday, and I plan to be 200 pounds by the time that day arrives. I'm currently at 310. There's about 110 pounds that we have to lose over the next 60 weeks. So we're going to be focusing on that, and in order to help us make sure that we're headed in the right direction based on the parameters that we've established for ourselves, it helps to have a visual graphic representation of that. So let me just get another set going here, and then we'll look at some of the metrics that we're going to start with. And again, this is a very fluid thing, because we're going to be, for the most part, we're going to be, sorry, I lost my train of thought. We're going to be tinkering and changing if things aren't working out, if we feel that we can improve on something or something just doesn't feel right. So this is not set in stone, but just sort of the initial class, the initial setup that, you know, we'll start with, and then we'll figure out if we can make some improvements. All right, let me get the next one. I believe this is 21, no, 31. Fuck, I now lost. Let's start with 30. Why not? I believe that'll be close enough. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. I really feel like I skipped a set, but I'm not sure. So let's go with that. You know, done is better than perfect. So what are we going to be measuring this week? Well, or, you know, on a weekly basis. Now, we're going to be focusing Mostly on weekly averages, because for all of these things, the day-to-day doesn't really matter as much. What matters really is the general trends that we're having, and for those trends, then a weekly average is probably the best way to go about it. So, of course, the main thing we're going to be looking at is weight as one of the components. But then we're going to be looking at my blood pressure because it's also very important. And we're going to be tracking sleep. I'm already tracking all these things, but we're going to be sort of looking at it more closely week by week and seeing if some of those adjustments can help this entire journey. Because again, losing weight doesn't exist in a bubble, but everything in your life is sort of connected to it. We're going to be looking at total sleep, so trying to get at least 8 hours of sleep. The Oura Ring, which is the thing that I use to measure my sleep, also sort of measures a bunch of different things, like how long you're sleeping, how consistently your bedtime and wake-up times are, how much time you spend on deep sleep versus light sleep versus REM sleep, and all those things. And it measures all the things about sleep, and it gives you a sleep score. And so we're going to try to aim for what they call optimal, which is out of 100, 85 or above. And, the timing, we're going to try to give ourselves 9 hours in bed to see if, we achieve 8 hours or more of actual sleep. We can do one more and then I'll do another set and then we'll continue. Also, because I have sleep apnea and I do sleep with a CPAP machine, then we're going to be looking at my average AHI, so it's apnea-hypopnea index, which is basically the way that you can measure how well the sleep apnea therapy device is working. And so basically how many apnea or hypopneas you have on a regular night. And basically, because I don't want to get into all the specific details of it, but basically you want to have a score of 5 or under. That means that the therapy is working and your sleep apnea is technically controlled. Obviously, the lower that you want, the best, but anywhere under 5 is perfectly normal and suitable. And so those are the things that we're going to start with. They're all very connected. They're all part of the same, like if we're sleeping well, then we have a better chance of all the other things working correctly, including, weight loss and blood pressure and like all of these things. So let's do one more set. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. We're halfway there. I feel like we probably skipped one, but I'm okay with that, I guess, because it feels like we skipped, I don't know. We're halfway. This is where we're taking it. We're halfway there. Anyway, so let's keep going with this. What other things are we measuring? Then, in terms of activity, we are going to be measuring. So the Oura Ring is also an activity tracker, which is, was useful. It's not as good as a more dedicated activity tracker like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch that you wear on your wrist, but it's pretty decent, I guess, for our needs, and in order to minimize the number of gadgets and things that we're using, this is probably a good thing. And so we're going to be measuring 2 things. One, the Oura Ring gives me an activity, like a daily activity goal, which is basically based, and it's all connected. So I have a baseline of I think it's 500 daily active calories that I should burn based on not just my basal metabolic rate, but activity and and exercise that I'm doing throughout the day. Because I think my baseline is 500. If I didn't have a good night's sleep, if it senses that I'm not feeling well, and it can tell by my body temperature, my heart rate, and any of those things, then it'll lower that daily goal. If I'm feeling particularly good, maybe it'll increase it. But the idea is to try to meet the daily activity goal every day. And so when we're looking at weekly averages, a weekly average of 100%. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. And this is why I decided to do a weekly goal again, as opposed to just measuring any single day. Let me do one more set, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and why I decided to do it a certain way, or that specific way. 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. Okay, so the reason I decided to do, because it's, the goal is to have a weekly average of about 100. So when it gives you your daily activity goal, it's not like you meet it and that's it. Sometimes you go over, because let's say that, I just had a particularly hectic day or active day for some reason. It'll give me like credit for anything that I do over that. And if we start looking at trends, we don't want a bad day to derail the thought process. And so if we're looking at it, sorry, I don't think I'm making a lot of sense. If we're looking at something as a weekly average, if today, we only were able to do like 80% of it, but tomorrow we're able to do 120%, which can happen, then, overall for the week, the average is going to be about 100% per day. And so I feel like since we're doing everything in weekly averages, because it gives us a little more, I don't want to say leeway, because that sounds like we're being a little too lenient, but it just gives us a little more breathing room, a little more wiggle room to accommodate for the fluctuations of life. And so looking at this as a weekly average, as opposed to just did I do it today or did I not do it today? And getting that sort of like red mark, even if it's not like a physical red mark, but in our heads, like, oh, I didn't meet my goal this day. It's better to do it on a weekly basis, because you can, even if you have a bad day, you can still adjust and try your best to get, and then be able to see those trends over time. And so that's why even with the daily activity goal, I want it to be, what the weekly average is, and not just a very specific day. And then the other thing that we're doing in terms of exercise that we're actually measuring is steps. Like making sure, like, this is of course, like strength training is exercise and all that, but we also want to be walking and moving around. And based on what I've been seeing, that I can do naturally without adding too much pressure to do a lot extra, I can probably get approximately 8,000 steps per day on average. And again, some days are going to go over, some days are going to be under. But if we try to maintain 8,000 steps, I think that's doable, because as we're trying to meet the daily activity goal and then walking around and all that stuff, I think 8,000 steps is probably doable, like decently doable. And so we're going to be measuring for that as well. So we're going to try to get at least 100% on the activity, and we're going to get at least 8,000 steps on average for steps. All right. Now let's keep going here. 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 69, 70. Whew. 70. Okay, and now after that, then we're going into the nutrition aspect of this. So of course, we're gonna continue to measure with Lumen. And Lumen is that little device that I use to measure my metabolism and making sure that I guess the goal is to be metabolically flexible. So when I'm consuming carbs, I'm using them for fuel right away for energy and not storing them. And then when those are depleted, getting back to fat burn, because we're trying to get rid of all this extra fat that we're carrying around. And so we're gonna continue measuring with that and getting an average of our morning measurement, which is the most important one. We're gonna start with that. Just what is our morning measurement? You know, are we waking up consistently in fat burn? And are we trying to get, are we able to get to, the best possible score that you can get on Lumen, which is a 1, which means that you're mostly burning fat. I think it's like 75% above would get you a 1. And so we're gonna be measuring for that. And then of course, on a daily basis, we're gonna be measuring our macros. So are we hitting our macros goals? Are we consuming enough protein? And Lumen also gives us a target range, something that we should be aiming for. But we're gonna be focusing mostly on protein, making sure that this little bit of weight training that we're doing is not going to waste, but actually helping us maintain muscle, and that we're basically not cannibalizing our own body for energy by, using muscle tissue for energy while storing fat. And so it's something that's also very important for us to be doing and taking care of. And so for that reason, we're going to be focusing on making sure that we get enough macros, that we're getting enough, calories, obviously. Sorry, I got a little distracted there because I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so we're going to be measuring our macros and we're going to be measuring our calories. And we talked about it when we were sort of doing the initial setup of this, that based on my current weight and based on the amount of calories that I've been burning for the last few weeks, as it's measured by all my things, I'm at around 3,400 calories per day. And so if I aim to have between 22 and 2,400 calories consuming, that is, it'll give us a deficit of about 1,000 calories. And then that gives us about 2 pounds per week, which is what we're trying to get to in order to get to 200 pounds by July 21st, 2025. All right, let me get the next one done. 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to focus on this week. I guess the biggest adjustment that we're trying to do here is getting to starting to measure our food, making sure that we're consuming enough calories, enough protein, making sure that we're not exceeding our carb intake. And again, we're going to be focusing on the right kinds of foods. We're going to try to eat more whole foods, try to limit more processed foods, some of the simple carbs and stuff. And so that's basically it. Those are the things that we're going to be measuring in an active, graphic way, something that we can explore together, if you will. It'll be a big motivator for me, force myself to visualize my progress and sort of analyze it and be mindful of it. And I think it'll be fun for you guys to see, but also probably a helpful tool to visualize it in that way. And so the way that I'm thinking about this is I want to create sort of like a weekly roundup of everything that we sort of did throughout the week, and what were the challenges, what things went well, what things could be improved. Just be a little more mindful of everything that we're going through and present it. If I force myself to present it to you guys in a way that makes sense, sort of like a roundup of all of these things, I'll be forced to think about it in a more mindful way. And I feel like if we do it this way, certain patterns are going to emerge that will show us, okay, some of these things are working, some of these things aren't working, and maybe we'll start to see correlations between all of these things, what foods we're eating, how much rest we're getting, how if we're feeling sick or anything like that, and what that's doing to affect, our goals of, health and weight loss. And so I'm going to be starting, I guess, essentially like a newsletter where every week, I guess on Monday, and that would be today. Interestingly enough, I still don't have it, but by the time this comes out, I will. I'll be working on it this week, and then by the time this video comes out, then you'll have access to it. But basically, Monday morning, my goal is that Monday mornings, I can give you guys, those of you who are interested, a roundup of the week with all these things that, I was just mentioning. And then just having to do that, it'll force me to think about it in a more mindful but actionable way. And that way we can set up a better week, for the upcoming week, and maybe give ourselves some challenges, some actionable steps and stuff like that. I don't know. I think that that'll be very beneficial, and I think it'll be useful for some of you guys, whoever's interested. But it'll be extremely useful for me to also have that extra motivation. I know that it's more work, and the more involved I get in this, the more work I create for myself on top of all my other obligations. But I think the end result is being more focused on what we're trying to do, is being more focused on the task at hand, which is, at the end of the day, the most important. Because if we don't have this, if we don't have health, if we don't have good, healthy habits, then nothing else really matters. And so, all right, let's get one more set. We got 2 more sets left of this to get going. 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. And so basically, if you're watching this, actually let me say it here to this camera so you guys can look at me in the eye. Basically, if you're seeing this, then there should be a link in the description below to access this first issue of the newsletter that'll have the roundup of last week, the week that just ended. That was basically week 1. It did not go as intended, but it started nonetheless, and so we're not going to push anything back. It is what it is, and we'll sort of take it from there. So, yeah, go check it out if that's something that seems interesting to you. The idea, again, the details I'm still working out, but by the time this comes out, you will be able to see it, and it will have been worked out. And hopefully it'll look decent, and it'll be nice and interesting and fun, and it'll give you, a better understanding of this entire process, and hopefully help you in some way, either through motivation or ideas or in creating your own system. Hopefully that'll help. But I think that it'll also be hugely helpful for me, because it's, like I said, it's going to force me to think about this in a more mindful way, just be more aware. Because it's so easy with something like this, especially something that we're doing day in and day out, to become so mundane and to sort of start going on autopilot and not taking the time to really think about it and process it and just understand it in a more holistic way, as opposed to just kind of going through the motions, which of course happens all the time. And so, ooh, what happened there? Well, I think the battery's dying. Okay. Let's put you back in your battery, in your case. Yeah, camera battery low. Okay, so the problem with the little camera is that the battery is super low. Anyway, so it feels so mundane sometimes, and it feels like you're just going through the motions and then taking the time to think about it and analyze it in any meaningful way. It's difficult to do it. So having that extra motivation, and again, the same way that I do with these workouts, because we do them together with staying the course and staying with the system, because I'm doing it with you guys. This is something else that we can do together that'll be a useful tool, but then also it'll force us to think about the process in a more meaningful way and analyze it. And I'm such a huge fan of data and just sort of the scientific method as much as I can. So this feels like a step in the right direction. All right, let's do one more set here. Last set. 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. All right. This is done. Now we're gonna do our dumbbell bicep curls. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And so, yeah, this is going to be hugely helpful for me, just because it's going to be interesting to just be able to see it and put it in there and analyze what we're doing, because for the longest time, or I guess I shouldn't say the longest time, but for a very long time, I've been accumulating data. I have tons of data. You know, I've been tracking my sleep and all that, but I haven't really analyzed it in any meaningful way. Like, I think that there are some people who are able to, I don't know why it stopped. I feel like technology today is malfunctioning around me. All right, we'll talk about data in a minute. Let me just get another set in here, because now the battery's gonna die. Let's just try to get it done quickly. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. All right. But I was saying before the camera cut out, is that there are people who, if they're collecting data, they can somehow force themselves to sit down and analyze through the data and come up with some meaningful conclusions and correct course from there. I love gathering data, but I have a very difficult time doing the other part. I don't know what it is. It's a procrastinator in me, it's the ADD in me, as the OCD in me, any of my neurodivergent qualities, but it doesn't allow me to do it in any meaningful way. And so one of the ways that I found helps me work through things is to do it verbally out loud, and that's where you guys come in. And so I have tons of sleep data, but I'm not really doing anything with it. I'm not trying to adjust. I'm not meaningfully trying to do anything. I have a difficult time keeping myself accountable and acting on that. And so being able to include you guys, bring you into the process will help me by working through it verbally, externalizing it, and not just kind of going into the rabbit hole of my mind where I go from one thing to the next and never really arrive in any meaningful, tangible conclusion. And so forcing myself to do that for you guys at the same time forces me to get it done, to do it, to talk through it. And, it's hugely beneficial for me. So, all right, let's do the last set. And we'll conclude our workout. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60. All right. Keep thinking that maybe at some point soon we're going to start including an extra set in there. We'll do 80 because now my arms feel a little bit stronger. But anyway, so I'm going to get to work on that. And I don't know, I'll see if I see you guys a little bit later or if I see you tomorrow. I'm not sure. So it really depends. If the video I was trying to be funny and it did not work. If the video continues after this, if you're looking at the play bar and we got more, it means that I recorded a little more today. And if there isn't, then that means that I didn't record any more today. So for now, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten anything today, so I'm going to go eat, and I will see you guys in a little bit or tomorrow.